Okay, how's everybody doing? So this is going to be the brewery build, but before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of things. Just want to give a shout out to Chuck Geiger. He's got a small little channel he started out. I think he's lives down in Arizona there, and he's doing a was it Atkins Topeka Santa Fe shelf layout. He looks to be a pretty good modeler too, and he's taken on this little postage stamp scene as practice pieces, and what he's done there, if you check his channel out, is really cool. And I recommend people try that. Like, just take a one by one piece of foam and then lay a piece of track and then just practice it just to get the creative juices going, and you'd be surprised what you'd turn out. And even if you don't use it, you could just punch a hole in the back of it and hang it on the wall, like a picture. I did that with Glover Road. It was only 2 inches deep. It's hanging on the wall. And yeah, you could do a little collage, three of them, like of the terrain of your area. Wouldn't that be a neat art kind of form to do with the model railroad genre? Anyway, yeah, and I just want to mention this too, just before I move on. I found this little turnout here. This is Z scale, and I built this over a Fast Tracks paper template in the same style that I do my HO ones. And I think I built this about a decade ago or more. I found this the other day going through, the boxes that we have full of, model railroad stuff, and it was laying on the bottom. I'd forgotten I'd ever built it. It actually works. The points, work good. I think I made this out of code 40. Yeah, code 40, I believe. And use PC ties and plasticize. Yeah, it works good. Number 10. Uh, so hey, for those of you that have young eyes and you're full of passion, uh, you can hand lay Z scale, and if you get a couple of little Jeeps and some nice, half a dozen box cars or whatever, you can do a nice little shelf layout in 4 feet. Uh, you know, Imagine what you could do in 8 with Z. Anyway, just thought I'd mention that. Okay, so I have all my tilt-up panels for my warehouse facade, or flat, right, that are going to get glued to the plywood face, right? This isn't it. This is my cutting board and my workbench here. Okay, so I'll show you that later. So what I want to do with these is I want to introduce like a bevel. Like if this is the panel, like this, I want to just put a bevel like that, like on the edge, like along these long edge here. Just on one side, you only really need it. And the reason why is because when I put another one beside it like this, which will have a bevel, then there'll be more like that typical tilt-up slab bevel that's there. So that when you glue the panels on the board, you can see it in there. So if you put a wash in there, if you airbrush this cavity, you can have a nice shadow between each panel, right? Like they'll be standing up, like this, right? And so inside of here, it's going to be this shadow effect, so that when they lay up like this, and they're laid on each one glued on, I glue one on, All right, with CA and epoxy probably, or I haven't decided yet totally, but probably CA and epoxy. And then I just put a spacer in like that, and I just lay, like, you know, once that's set, the CA will hold it right away. And the epoxy will take a little bit longer depending what you use, but the CA is a common glue used even by finish carpenters for like a clamp, for clamping flat surfaces. Did you know that? That just the medium CA, put a big, like you put a blob of CA there, a blob of CA there, and then a bead of epoxy, and you lay the panel down, bang, like that, and it's clamped in place. And then when the epoxy sets, she's good to go. And then once you got one nice and square, then you can lay your spacer in, and then bring in your other panel like this. And then when that's set, you just pull that out, right? So there you got your gap for your slab. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to varathane this plywood surface that I'm going to glue these panels onto for the warehouse. Okay, so why am I going to do that? Well, okay, I'll tell you. So if you use CA on the back of this plastic, like once it's sanded, roughed a bit, it'll glue really well to almost any surface, right? But if you lay it onto raw wood, especially plywood, in this case birch plywood, it'll soak up the CA so fast like it won't bond. They won't bond very well. You won't get a good solid mechanical bond because that's what CA is, right? But if you paint this surface with varathane, okay, just waterborne outdoor varathane, and let it dry overnight. So it's just got a bit of a satin finish on it. When you go to CA these panels on, they'll grab really nice, okay? So that's what you want. That way you won't need any epoxy really. You can just lay it on with CA if you so choose, okay? So seal up your plywood before you attach any plastic to plywood on any model. That's been the standard practice in the film industry, and that's what I do, okay? Okay, so I'm starting to lay these panels in now, right? Okay. And what I'm using is 15 thou, just number 115. It's just stripped for a spacer right here. I just cut one in half because I like to have an extra one in hand just in case you get a bit of glue on them. You can throw it aside, you know, and then use the other one until it dries off. Because you don't want this spacer to stick to your panels here, right? So when you're laying them in, so you know when it's glued in with CA, which I'll show you in a second here, you just peel that out like that. See those tilt-up concrete slab lines? Aren't they nice? And we want to make sure, as I think I mentioned this before, sorry if I have, we just want to double check, you know, for run out, right? So that's 6 9/16. 6 9/16, so that's good. So I can still run a spacer off that reliably. If my panel is square, like sometimes you got to flip them around like this, just to make sure, just double check each one. You know, it's worth the trouble because you get a nice clean lines and nice square panels, okay? Now this here I cut an opening, okay, for the first bay door. Now I know the model is temporarily or tentatively being modeled as out of service. This will give me the option to have an open door if I want to, right? It's always nice to have the option, although that's not my intentions. And furthermore, the door goes in a ways deeper than the thickness of this panel. So if I don't cut that out, then I'll end up with, you know, just plywood back there. And then when I fill it in, it's all flush. And I want it to be inset in a ways. So what I do to cut out a door like this is I drill a hole or 2 or 3 in each corner like this. And then remember this tool here, the chisel head one. So I scribe the lines, right, with the Olfa knife, right, and then I basically put it in like this in the corner and just cut into each corner square like a chisel on all 4 corners and just rock it back and forth, right. There you go, see.
And then that, I can clean that up later. That goes in there like that, see?
And it's a little, just a shade smaller than
The actual opening, so you won't see any of the wood there. And then I can just add some right angle or some strip or card
in there for the door.
The bay door, open bay door if you want. You know, you can have it partly open or something, you know, like. And I'm just going to use like corrugated siding or roofing, metal roofing, horizontally, right? For back there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this spacer in here like this. I'll show you how I glue one on. Okay. Just lay it on an angle so it doesn't fall over. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay in a bead of CA like this. I want to be very careful right here. You don't want to get it, excuse me, you don't want to get it too close to the next panel because you need to sort of drop this in dry to pinch that spacer and then line up the panel to the bottom.
Okay.
And then press down. Should grab pretty quick. CA really loves that varathane and that roughed up plastic, you know. Okay, so just to refresh again, this is like 80 grit. I rough up the back glue side really good to put lots of tooth and scratches there. And then varathane, you don't really need to sand it because the grain, it puffs the grain out a bit on the maple plywood and it's toothy, and that's what you want. And if you put CA here and there and you touch that panel on there,
good luck getting it off.
If it's got enough of a bead on there, you're going to have a tough time. So that's why you want to make sure you line things up. Oh, and one more thing. Remember when I cut these tilt-up panels? Cut them a little bit higher. See that nice line there?
Cut them a little bit higher so you got a bit of a lip back here for the roof. These are these flat tar and gravel roofs, but there's a bit of a lip there.
And then on this model, there's a
Panel that comes up higher like that on the edge, which I'm going to glue a panel there too.
okay.
Okay, so
I just want to talk about this tilt-up panel modeling. When you're modeling
a long span like this, okay, there's 20 of these tilt-up panels. There are actually about 20 on the prototype as well. I went over the photos again, and this building's actually a little more accurate than I thought. Although the doors, just while I'm here, will be a little bit shifted this way because there's a turnout here due to the layout design of the track. And so, but yeah, but the length is pretty close. So anyway, when you lay up a long run of tilt-up panels, this style of a model, which are very effective for the more modern
warehouse look,
it's inevitable that you're going to get run out.
Like what I mean by that is as you're adding panels,
like if you put this tight against this one here, right? Just pretend the spacers there, don't worry about that. And then you put this square up to there. Well, what happens sometimes that the panels are run out like this. I mentioned this before, right? So you can double check this way or you can measure from both ends, but there's going to be run out. So this is how you fix run out. And you want to try to catch it in the middle here, like in the span or wherever you can, right? When it starts to run out to about a 1/16 of an inch or a 32nd or so. So
this is what I do.
So I take the next panel, right?
And I basically plane down. So I measured
this here.
Well, here, let me just put a ruler on it for you. So this is 2 1/8, and this is just over 2 1/8. So you want this top here just a little bit thinner, just so that it brings this panel, when it's butted up against here, square to the square here, see?
to get rid of the runout. So it's square again. So when you start laying in the next run of panels with the spacer, then you can probably go the whole way or another span and you can check it again. But so far I've been fortunate. I've gotten to the middle of the model of the brewery here, and I've only had a little bit of runout, about maybe just over a 16th or so. But I'm going to correct that now. And then once I've planed that, just a little bit, a little plane like this works. Then I'll just take my board sander, right? And then I'll put in another bevel. Can probably just get away with. I should do this on a more rigid table though, but that'll work. There we are. Okay. And I'm going to put the spacer in there. Okay, so there's a little bit of a taper in this panel, but you won't be able to tell really. And then when I go to chase the next panel, I'm square again. All right. Okay. Just tapering the middle panel to check runout. Okay, so we're about 2/3 of the way down now with the panels on the brewery flat here. And I want to show you another condition of runout, or how to deal with it. Okay, so here I have this panel. I pulled off my stack. I'm working from a stack that's pre-cut, right? Now, when I lay this in, right, I'm just going to check it now because I don't want to run out or let it get away from me. So when I put this square here, sometimes the panels might not be totally square on the edge. See there? Like, see how I'm moving it there? Okay, now when you put a square on there, like it looks square, and then you move it a bit and it seems to run out. Sometimes you can fix that by just flipping the panel around like this. See, that's a nicer edge because you're going to have another chance to match up another edge with this. So that's just a little trick that I do to deal with it, and it's perfectly square there, see? So don't be afraid, like, to take your panel and just turn them around like that and try them. When the edges, or maybe just rock a bit or don't line up exactly. So flip them around, or you can just retouch them with a board sand. Okay, we're almost there. Okay, so here's the brewery warehouse all skinned up. Actually, I was very lucky with this one. They all matched up perfectly. I mean, I had to flip them and sand a few, but I mean, in terms of how many panels there were, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 panels. I don't know why I thought there was 20, but there's actually 17 there. So, but they worked out pretty good. So the front of the brewery warehouse is skinned with the tilt-up concrete slabs, okay? Now the fun begins.